In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the police who investigate crime and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories.
Now, John had a very bad childhood. His father was an abusive alcoholic. He was molested by a family friend. Even though he had two sisters, and a mother, his mother didn't do anything to help him. And making things even more worse is John had a heart condition which made him obese, which was a constant battle with bullying.
John Wayne Gacy was a very sociable man who was well respected throughout the community. He was involved in politics and had even taken a picture with First Lady Rosalind Carter. He'd throw block parties and dress up as Pogo the Clown during them to entertain the children. He was also a successful building contractor. A few boys working for Gacy had disappeared before and were labeled as runaways. Little did the community know he had a dark secret.
Robert Pierce was the real turning point of this case. His family was the only one that was middle class, while everyone else was just considered a runaway because of their family social status.
Sometimes I shudder to think about what would have happened if the mom didn't know who P.S. was talking to. Gacy explained away the stench as problems with sewage. However, the police were still suspicious, so they watched him. Gacy actively reveled in the attention and would frequently joke with officers and invite them into his home. When he met people, he'd refer to the constant police as his bodyguards.
For weeks, the scene outside Gacy's suburban Chicago home was grim. Families with missing brothers and sons watched in panic as crime scene technicians pulled the remains of 29 boys.
It was horrifying. There were so many victims on the floor and many stages of decomposition.
When we excavated the bodies, the floorboards literally shook because of the millions of worms eating them.
My cousin Marsha, she's with the police, and she said that there were bodies everywhere. And see, me, I was a little curious that day, so I went outside and I was just watching, and there was body after body coming out that door.
Here's a list of John Wayne Gacy's victims. Timothy Jack McCoy, 16 years old. Unidentified victim number 28, 14 to 18 years old. John Butkovich, 18 years old. Victim number 5, unidentified victim number 5, 22 to 32 years old. Daryl Sampson, 19 years old. Samuel Stapleton, 14 years old. Randall Reffett, 15 years old. Michael Bonin, 17 years old. William Carroll, 16 years old. Unidentified victim number 26, 22 to 30 years old. Jimmy Hackinson, 16 years old. Unidentified victim number 13, 17 to 21 years old. Unidentified victim number 21, 21 to 27 years old. Rick Johnston, 17 years old. William George Bundy, 19 years old. Michael Marino, 14 years old. Kenneth Parker, 16 years old. Gregory Godzik, 17 years old. John Sick, 19 years old. John Prestige, 20 years old. Unidentified victim number 10, 17 to 21 years old. Matthew Bowman, 18 years old. Robert Gilroy, 18 years old. John Mowry, 19 years old. Russell Nelson, 21 or 22 years old. Robert Winch, 18 years old. Tom E. Bowling, 20 years old. David Talsma, 20 years old. William Kindred, 19 years old. Timothy O'Rourke, 20 years old. Frank Langdon, 19 years old. Jake Nazara, 20 years old. And finally, Robert P.S., 15 years old.
We will now be commencing the trial of Gacy versus the people. Mr. John Gacy, we find you guilty of all 33 counts of murder, and you will be found guilty and punished by lethal injection.
Courtroom where began the largest mass murder trial in this nation's history.
The murder trial of John Gacy did indeed get underway today with opening statements from the prosecution and the defense. Vivian Rosenberg is covering the trial.
Security was tight at court today, and some people coming in had more than a passing interest in the case.
Well, my feelings, I'd like to see them, do something to him besides put him in a, institution. I'd like to see him be, killed, if I got my feelings to say.
Prosecutor Robert Egan named Mrs. Wood's son along with all of Gacy's other victims as he opened for the state. Egan described Gacy as rational, premeditated, and evil, who killed his victims like flies when they got in his way. Carefully planned murders that resulted in bodies and bodies and bodies, day after day after day. Defense attorney Robert Mata countered to the jury that by any standards, Gacy is insane. He sleeps...
Yeah, I was a jury member. Sure, he tried to claim he was schizophrenic, but was he really? And even if he was, it doesn't matter. He killed 33 kids. John Wayne Gacy was executed by means of lethal injection on May 10th, 1994. For his last meal, he had deep-fried shrimp. While in prison, he sold paintings of clowns for a lot of money. This will all probably have audio gone over it, but I'm doing this just in case, and as a placeholder. Hi, I'm Hadley Quigg with News Channel 5, and I'm here today with Joanna Gacy, sister of infamous serial killer John Wayne Gacy. So what was his childhood like?
Well, as you know, he was born March 17, 1942. Originally, we lived in Chicago, Illinois, but then we moved a little bit afterwards. And I gotta say, his childhood was rough. Mine was too, honestly. First, our father, he was abusive, and I don't know if he hurt my mother, but I feel like he did. Honestly, with the way he acted around the rest of the family, I would not be shocked. And then, sadly, my brother, he was also molested by a close family member. And as sad as that is, I really think that is what put him on his path to hurting so many other people.
Were there any other signs that made you suspicious of the fact that he turned out to be a notorious serial killer?
Well, one of his first jobs, he actually worked at a cemetery as a mortuary. And I'm not saying anything against those people, but it was a little strange. Stop.
Were there any other signs that caused suspicion or gave any hints that he turned out to be such a terrible guy and serial killer?
Well, once we moved to Nevada, he eventually got a job as a mortuary, and he didn't tell us this, but we later found out, as everyone else did, that he would hug and caress the bodies. And if that's not a sign of something else strange going on, I don't really know. Honestly, after all this came out, I feel like I don't really know my brother much.
That's weird. Was he married? Any kids? I mean, I feel terrible, but...
He actually married twice. His first wife, my ex-sister-in-law, Marilyn, she actually had two kids, Christine and Michael, my niece and nephew. And he, honestly, before any of this happened, he seemed just like a typical guy. He was great. He helped in the community. He was even the VP of the United States Junior Chamber Organization. I think that's what it was called. And he helped out in the community. He was even a clown at kids' birthday parties. People trusted him. He worked part-time at a shoe company, and I don't even know anymore.
Just like to say, clowns will never be looked at the same. Were there any mental illnesses that could cause this?
Well, as you know, at the trial, he was interviewed and investigated by some psychiatrists, and they did find that he had schizophrenia, but the jury ruled otherwise. And I don't know if my brother ever was actually, or if he was faking, or if it was just some grand scheme to toy with and get sympathy from people. But even if he did have schizophrenia, it doesn't excuse his actions. It does not bring back these 33 young men.
It was just devastating to know that he killed that many people without nobody having known that he could do something like that.
When I first heard about how John was murdered, my heart just dropped. Johnny was somebody's brother. He was somebody's son.
Do you still love your brother today?
I hated him. I hated so much that he took a life, many lives, and he changed so many lives. And I was angry what he did to my family and my innocent children. How can I love somebody like that? How?
It was horrifying. There were so many bodies and victims.
When the police approached Gacy's home, they noticed a strong smell that set